June 4th, 1944. Somewhere outside Harland, Iowa. The sun rose over cornfields, casting golden light across dew-covered grass. The smell of wet earth mingled with something sweeter, the warm, sticky scent of honey radiating from rows of beehives beside the barn. John Winslow Carson, aged 36, stood with one hand resting on a hive box, his flannel shirt clinging to his back. Bees buzzed around him with military precision. He dipped a spoon into a jar, watching honey trail down in a slow ribbon. "Sweetest thing in the world," he muttered. "But ain't nothing sweet about this war." Behind him, distant engines grew louder. American B-17 bombers on a training flight, headed for England, for Europe, for hell. John squinted up at the sky. He didn't wave. There was no one to wave to. His brother Mark had shipped out last winter. No letters in weeks. A military truck pulled up on the gravel path. A soldier stepped out with a clipboard. "John Carson?" "That's me." "You're on the list. We're requisitioning honey for the 8th Army. Says here you've got 350 hives." "That's right. But you really need honey over there?" The soldier didn't smile. "Sir, we need everything, especially what lasts." As the truck backed up to his barn, John felt a strange mix of pride and helplessness. He mumbled, "Ain't no one ever won a war with bee spit." But he was wrong, and in just 72 hours, one of his stupid ideas would help save a convoy of American trucks rolling through occupied France. John Winslow Carson was not a hero by any conventional standard. Born in 1908, he inherited 160 acres from his father, along with an old barn and a few dozen beehives. By 1935, he'd turned it into a full-scale operation, managing over 200 colonies, roughly 12 million bees, producing 3,000 pounds of honey every season. Then Pearl Harbor changed everything. John watched neighbors' sons and his own brother Mark go off to fight. John was 33, with a bad knee from a farming accident, classified 4F, unfit for service. That single letter haunted him. While others bled on beaches, John was told to grow, to produce, to harvest. During the war, sugar became tightly rationed, just 26 pounds per person per year, down from 100 before the war. Civilians and the military turned to honey. It was shelf-stable, energy-dense, naturally antimicrobial. The Army began looking for suppliers. John got a letter offering a small government contract. Nothing flashy, just deliver 700 pounds to a processing facility in Des Moines. At first, he didn't think much of it, but behind the scenes, the military was experimenting with honey in field dressings for wounds, coating metal to prevent rust, even quieting vehicle joints during stealth operations. By late 1943, John had expanded to 350 hives, yet he remained convinced he was on the sidelines. He could not have known his quiet work would soon collide with one of the most audacious logistics experiments of the war. By spring 1944, John was producing close to 4,000 pounds of honey. But while honey flowed, his frustration grew. The government didn't tell him where it went. No acknowledgement, no thanks, no proof it was helping. His neighbors didn't make it easier. "You still playing with bee juice?" one asked at church. "We're trying to win a war here." Each night, John reread his brother's last letter from December. It was now April. Mark had written, "We're cold, wet, sometimes hungry, but we move, always moving. If you send anything, send warmth." That line burned into John's thoughts. So he started looking at honey differently. It wasn't just food. It was thick, slow-burning energy, waterproof, sticky, long-lasting. It could coat, preserve, bind.
One evening, while fixing a sticky hinge on his barn door, He dipped a rag in a mix of old honey and linseed oil and rubbed it into the rusted joint. The squeal stopped instantly. The next morning, a truck from the Des Moines depot arrived early. The corporal looked exhausted. "Last night we lost 6 trucks in Normandy. Machine noise, smell of oil. Krauts heard them coming miles off." Something clicked. "I've got something," John said. "A compound. Made it myself. It quiets hinges, covers odor. It's just honey, beeswax, and linseed oil." "You want us to smear bee spit on army trucks?" "Might save 6 trucks next time." The corporal laughed, then paused. "Fine. 1 crate. I'll take it to Fort Riley, see what they say." Weeks passed, no word. Then on May 12th, a black sedan pulled into his yard. 2 men stepped out. "We ran a field test on 3 trucks, coated the axles, doors, and exhaust hoods with your compound." And? "They ran silent, smelled like a bakery, but ran quiet. Krauts didn't hear them until they were already behind the ridge." The man handed John a paper. "Effective immediately. You're authorized to produce 100 gallons per month. Code name, Sweet Silence." John blinked. "Excuse me?" "Welcome to the war, Mr. Carson." By late May, John was making war compound 1 barrel at a time. His workshop transformed into a crude production line. Buckets of raw honey stood beside vats of melted beeswax and drums of linseed oil. The air was thick and sweet, almost nauseating. Each week, a military truck collected the compound, now labeled SSC-7, Sweet Silence, Compound Number 7. In June, John got a letter from Sergeant Benjamin Gentry, 59th Logistics Division, European Theater. "Your stuff works. Coded 5 vehicles last week. Germans didn't hear us coming. Got the drop on them outside Carentan. 2 enemy trucks destroyed, 0 American casualties. Smelled like Christmas. Keep it coming." John folded the note and placed it in a mason jar, like a medal made of words. He kept experimenting. One morning he noticed the waxy layer didn't just muffle sound, it insulated the wheel from vibration. In World War II, where entire columns could be located by acoustic sensors, vibration mattered. A week later, a typed reply came. "Tested your modifications on 8 Jeeps near Saint-Lô. Dampening reduced acoustic detection range by an estimated 25%. Bravo! Increasing to 200 gallons per month. Prepared to ship to Port of Liverpool for pre-invasion outfitting." Liverpool. Invasion. The pieces clicked. Those barrels would land in Normandy within days, and men would smear a farmer's stupid honey compound on armored doors before rolling into the most dangerous stretch of road in the war. June 12, 1944. 6 days after D-Day. American convoys rumbled down cratered roads under cover of darkness. But something was different. Modified trucks moved silently through what scouts called a kill zone. No metallic clinks, no creaking doors, no diesel stench. "We were ghosts," Captain Lawrence Mendel would later write. "They expected engines and rattles. Instead, we gave them silence and molasses." Field mechanics called it bee grease. Infantry called it ghost syrup. But whatever the nickname, it worked. On June 22nd, a military courier brought John a photograph. Black and white, grainy, showing an American convoy parked safely behind hedgerows near Carentan. Written on the back, "Your stuff. It saved us." By July, the U.S. Army authorized expansion. Over 400 gallons per week were being shipped overseas. British and Canadian forces began requesting the compound for nighttime raids. Then came the real test. On July 29th, Allied intelligence intercepted a German plan to shell a key resupply route near Saint-Lô.
A decision was made. Deploy a full convoy, 84 trucks coated in sweet silence. At 0200 hours, the convoy moved. No headlights, no engine revs, no squeals. German scouts didn't hear them. German mortars didn't fire. By 0600, the entire supply run had completed without a single loss. The after-action report was brief. Silence preserved operational secrecy. Recommend continued use of compound SSC-7. August 20th, 1944. The Falaise Gap, northern France. Nearly 50,000 German soldiers were trapped between two converging Allied armies. General Omar Bradley needed supplies to move faster than the enemy. Enter Convoy Echo 9, 212 trucks scheduled to cross into the Falaise region under cover of night. At 1900 hours, the order came. Apply the Carson compound, full coverage. Inside one of the trucks sat Sergeant Mark Carson, John's brother. He had no idea the compound came from the same hands that had pulled him out of mud holes as a kid in Iowa. By 22:30 hours, the convoy moved. The darkness was absolute. As they passed within 1,000 meters of a German mortar unit, no shells were fired. They didn't know the Americans were there. 10 miles in, a German patrol spotted movement. One flare went up. Gunfire erupted. But the surprise had bought precious seconds, just far enough to bypass the worst of the kill zone. 3 trucks were hit, 8 men wounded, none killed. The rest, 198 vehicles, made it through. They arrived in time to reinforce the Canadian First Army, who slammed the door shut on the Falaise Gap the following morning. A week later, John received a battered envelope. Inside, a torn piece of canvas and a note. They used your stuff on our truck. We rolled quiet even under fire. I shot back and lived. Mark. John walked outside to the hives and whispered, "You did good, girls." The war didn't end in Normandy. But for John, his war ended on a quiet September morning in 1944 when the trucks stopped coming. His job was done. In a post-war Army report, buried between stats about truck tires, there's a line. Temporary vehicle coating designated SSC-7 demonstrated minor but measurable improvement in stealth movement. Source, civilian supplier, Iowa. No medal, no citation, just one sentence. In 1945, as victory celebrations filled American cities, John returned to what he'd always done. He repaired tractors. He repainted the barn. And when Mark finally returned home, thinner and quieter, they sat on the porch drinking coffee, watching bees. "I heard they tested your stuff on the Navy, too," Mark said. John smirked. "Well, hell, maybe I sank a U-boat." They laughed for real this time. John passed in 1971. His obituary ran 4 lines. No mention of Normandy, no mention of trucks. But on his property, beneath a rusted gate, someone would later find a metal box with a cracked jar inside. Inside the jar, a folded note. "Sweet silence. Remember us."
It's easy to think history's made by generals and tanks, by grand strategies and famous speeches. But sometimes it's made by something humbler. A man alone in a barn, a swarm of bees, a sticky golden substance never meant for war. John Carson never stormed a beach. He never fired a shot. But his honey rolled through the mud of Normandy. It crossed bridges under fire. And it saved lives without taking any. There's something profoundly human in that idea, that in the deadliest conflict the world had ever seen, one man using the most ancient resource on Earth could tip the balance, not with violence, but with ingenuity. So here's my question. What's the most unexpected way you've ever seen someone make a difference? Leave your answer in the comments. I read every single one. And if this story surprised you, share it, because sometimes the sweetest part of history is the part we almost missed.